Hey,
Hey there, everybody.
here we are.
We
We
are
are
live,
live
and it's a
again.
pleasure to be hanging out. How are you, Jason?
Absolutely. I'm good. How are you, Golden?
Doing really good. I had an excellent day so far,
Well, that's good. I'm happy to hear
and
that.
pretty excited about our topic.
I am
Yep.
too. I am particularly excited about this one. This one sort of is going to sort of continue off of last week a little bit. Sort of more
Definitely.
kind of workflow, mixer setup techniques that can kind of help you just optimize your workflow and make things a lot faster and more intuitive to get around the mixer while you're operating it, while you're in use.
Yeah.
And last week, you showed an awesome demonstration of a scene that you created to mix a huge big band in a venue. This week, we're going to scale it down just a little bit and talk about some smaller configurations and talk a little bit about actually mixing yourself as a performer in different aspects of that application. So,
right. Well, before we
get
get started, I'd like to welcome you all to QSE Tech Talk. I'm Golden Preciado. I'm an audio engineer and House of Worship specialist with QSE. I'm here along with Jason Fernandez, a live sound training specialist with QSE. And like Jason was saying, today we'll be discussing helpful techniques, tips, and tricks for running your own sound system and mixing yourself from stage. And I think it's a great time to be talking about this because now that restrictions have lifted, people are itching for live music and musicians are itching to get back out there and play. And in many of those situations, they'll be mixing for themselves. So we're going to show you our personal setups and what we do when we have to go out and mix ourselves. And
that's what we're going to be talking about today. Hopefully give you some good hints and advice. Again, we are going to be talking about our own experiences and how we utilize the mixer personally, but hopefully it can kind of open some doors and unlock some ideas for you that you can give you some ideas on how you can use it in your setup or your performance or however you're gigging.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to bring it on a smaller level. Last week we talked about a big band that I was mixing. Now, when I go out and play, I usually bring two K8.2s, and those are my mains. Cool. And I use in-ear monitors, which makes it a lot easier for me because I have to carry less. And I like having my monitoring right there in my head. So, and then I don't bring my TouchMix 30. I'm actually using my TouchMix 16. And that whole rig I can get loaded in one trip because I am queen of the one trippers. So I am going to quickly switch over to my other camera. And while I do, I'll tell you when I go out and play what I am playing with. I play guitar and I sing, but I have other few fun little things that are going on there when I play as well. So this is my scene. And as you're looking, you'll see that I have some labels on this bank. The faders that are up right here are the acoustic guitar.
Yep, see that.
And my vocal. And I actually configured this and set up my system at home and did all this at home. So when I arrived at the event, I didn't have to do any of this. So when I was setting up my guitar, the first thing I did was enter in a preset and I started from there. I made changes after that, but I started from there. And right here where you see this presets tab, that is where I went and found my presets. I chose frets for acoustic guitars. And then I chose acoustic guitar and the pickup with a compressor. And then I recalled it. It brought up the preset. I then changed it so it sounded better and worked with my guitar. But the preset had me 80% of the way there.
Right.
So that is what I ended up with. Yeah, exactly. And I did add some slight compression to my guitar. Now my signal, the reason the compressor threshold is at -30 is because my guitar signal wasn't quite as hot at the time that I was doing this. So my compressor, I have it, trust me, it's not hitting that hard.
That's some pretty heavy compression there.
I know. It all worked out.
Okay.
The other, you'll see right here, it have something marked guitar right, and I will explain that to you in a second. But right here, I also have my vocal, and I have a compressor set for that. I have a very close mic proximity. I'm right on top of my mic. So this is the EQ that ends up working for my vocal. Now, if you are right on top of your mic, you'll notice a lot of buildup in the low end, which is why you see right here, there's such a drop off here on my low end. And I did a little boost there between 1 and 6K. Okay. And it made it cut beautifully, and it worked great with my guitar. Perfect. It's not an EQ that works for everyone. This is an EQ that worked purely for my voice. There you go. Yep.
Yeah, sometimes you do need to tailor that stuff depending on the voice or the instrument that you're working with. But
yes,
yeah, the presets will be pretty darn close.
Yeah, I started with a preset, and then I made my changes. The nice thing about the presets is they have the low cut already in a good starting place. And when it comes to vocals especially, low cut is super important. I have some musicians say, well, I want to feel boom in my voice. I want to feel bass. So they add it to the subs. They boost all the lows, but then all you end up getting is a muddy vocal.
Yep.
Because what they're boosting are frequencies that their voice isn't even producing.
Nope.
And so
you're just sending mud to your subwoofer.
Yes, exactly. Ambient, noisy mud that your voice isn't actually producing. So this is the EQ that ended up on my voice. Right here, I have what's marked a guitar right, and I actually use that in my broadcast mix. When I'm out there playing, I always live stream, and I have an interface that connects to my phone, and I live stream to my phone. And what I did is I patched I sent it right here where on my auxiliary one. Okay. I did a double patch. I created a hard patch of the same signal going into another channel. Okay. And then I panned them far left and right.
So you physically connected a cable from aux 1 into aux 5.
Yes, but I mean, these are channels 13 and 14, but yes, 14, that's exactly what I did.
Okay.
And in a digital patching situation, you would add a little bit of delay to that second guitar just to make it not exactly the same signal. In this situation, let's see, did I add delay? Yeah, I only added about 7 milliseconds. I didn't need to add much because there's already a slight delay by doing an analog patch like that. Sure. So I used enough delay to create a spread, and that was it. And that's what I use in my broadcast mix. And that's what my broadcast mix settings would look like, which are different from my mains. Mains, they're getting everything mixed straight up the center. Sure. Now down here is where I have my in-ear monitor settings, and I got a lot going on there. I run them in stereo, and the reason being is because I have pounding into my ear click and cues. Yes. Since I'm not playing every day of my life, I do not have all the words memorized to these songs. So I created my own click and cue tracks. Nice. And it cues me like the first couple of words of a line coming up. So, I don't look dumb like when I forget a song. It works out really good. So you see that right here. And I actually have my click panned slightly to the right, and my cues, which is my voice that are spitting out my words, panned all the way to the left. And by doing that, it helps me have greater delineation, and I can hear them more clearly at a lower volume. And that's why I pan those that way.
Nice. I actually use a similar application, but I'll get to that. Real quick, just to back up for a second, you mentioned, you kind of showed off your broadcast mix and mentioned that it is different from your main mix. Can you just quickly explain why you would want a separate mix for your broadcast versus your main?
Well, in my main mix, I only had a mono guitar signal going into my main mix. In my broadcast mix, I have created a stereo guitar sound. It sounds brilliant with just one guitar to have it panned like that. It makes it's a beautiful image.
Nice.
The other thing is my effects masters will be placed in slightly different places for my broadcast mix than for my main mix.
Okay.
And that's mostly because your microphones and pickups are very dry sounding. They're directional and they're not picking up ambient space like someone would hear when they're sitting there listening.
Noise and the crowd and just the ambience of the venue. Yeah.
Yes. So some of that I had to add back in using my vocal reverb and delay and a guitar reverb to make it sound like I was in the space. And that's why one of the best parts of running a separate broadcast mix is because of that reason. You can create your space and keep that signal from sounding so dry and in your face by doing that. So,
super cool. Yeah.
And this is going to be one of the cooler things right here. The way I mix myself in for both my main mix and my broadcast mix is I do a virtual sound check. So I'm actually going to record multi-tracks of my acoustic guitar. And right here, I'm going to press the record button and it's going to bring me to my record page. And what I'm going to do is arm my acoustic guitar, my second guitar. I'm trying to reach around my tripod right here. And then my vocal. And I'm going to record those tracks and then mix myself in afterwards. So I'd press record, I'd play my songs. Usually I play a few parts of different songs so I can hear a softer dynamic and a louder dynamic. And then when I'm done, I'm going to put this into track mode and walk around with my iPad around the speakers and around the venue and press play and play it all back. And that's where I am going to set my levels. I'm going to set my effects. I'm going to make everything sound just perfect. So, and you can do this when you're using acoustic instruments that aren't super loud. Probably a little harder to do with if you have a drum kit involved, but those other instruments, it will give you a sense of what they sound like in the house. And for me, since I'm just a guitar and a vocal and I'm running a main and a broadcast mix, this works perfectly for dialing myself in.
And since you are, mixing yourself, being able to record yourself and then play it back to listen to it and then connect wirelessly and be able to actually get in front of the sound system and go out to where the audience is and actually hear what that's going to sound like when you perform. That's a really cool thing to be able to do, since, when you get going, you're on your own. There's nobody that's out there, referencing it and actively mixing for you. So you kind of have to get a feel and idea of what you're going to be sounding like, and then kind of use that throughout your performance.
Right. But that feels so good to actually hear what they're going to hear. My whole desire is all for what the audience is going to be hearing. I want to give them the best I can actually give them. Yeah. So the other reason a virtual sound check is good, if you're using a monitor and you're running a separate mix for your monitor, it'll help give you a sense of where everything's sitting in your monitor as well as the house. And you can hear how the monitor is affecting the room. If it's a small room, a loud monitor may really affect it adversely. And this will give you an idea of what's going on there. Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff.
So yeah. And then when I'm actually playing, I have an iPad in front of me and I mute my effects when I'm talking and I bring my effects back. Yeah. iPads are just, handy little gadgets to have around.
They certainly are. Yeah. Like I said, if you're we're mixing remotely, it definitely helps if you're by yourself, as a singer-songwriter, or if you are on the board full time. You can set up one or two, a couple of them get like a multi-screen setup.
Right.
That looks cool.
Yeah. So how about you, Jason? How do you use your mixer when you're going live?
I have some cool things that I want to show off, but before I get to my stuff, there are a couple of questions that I just wanted to quickly address in the comments here. We got a question from Walter on Facebook asking how the patch matrix is used. I think I'm going to direct you to our training videos on that one for the most part, as I think neither Golden and I actually have a TouchMix 30 set up for this Tech Talk today. That's certainly something we can cover in the future, but just to give you some general applications for uses of the patch matrix. It's used probably most commonly for a technique called molting, which is where you take a single physical input on your mixer and you molt it. So you send that signal from that input across multiple channels on your mixer, multiple digital channels. So like for simplicity, you have a microphone plugged into channel 1, and by default, fader channel 1 controls that channel, right? Well, you can go into the patch matrix and you can molt it, which means you can send that signal, let's say, to channel 5 as well. So now the mic signal
going channel 1 and 1 and 5.
1 and 5, yeah. And so you have a dual signal and you can process them differently. You can route them differently, meaning you can send channel 1 to the main mix and you can pull channel 5 out of the main mix and only send it to a monitor, something like that. And you have more options as how you can process that channel. A quick example on why you would want to do that is an acoustic guitar. We're talking about acoustic guitars already, right? As kind of Golden kind of showed off a little bit in her EQ settings, while the presets are great in a TouchMix, acoustic guitar in particular can be tricky to get it to sound good in a PA. So if you do that, you should feel very proud of yourself, first of all. But let's say you do and you get it to sound great in the PA, but your guitar player, when you get it in their monitor, they're not happy with the way it sounds. They don't like the way it sounds in their monitor. So you can compromise. You can kind of tweak it a little bit to get it to sound okay in the front of the house and then okay for your guitar player. Or if you have the TouchMix 30, you just send it to an additional channel that's not being used. You pull that channel out of the main mix, you send that to their monitor, and then you can process it however they want. Then they win, the audience wins, and you win. So that's just a one example. There are many uses for that, but that hopefully gives you an idea of what can be done with it. You can process.
I had a vocalist come in with a very similar issue. She was trying to tell me exactly how to mix her voice. She says, I don't want any compression. I don't want anything done to my voice at all. I just want to hear it the way it is. And in my mind, I'm thinking, no problem. I'm just going to molt it and send it to her exactly how she wants. And then I'm going to take my channel for the house and do exactly what I want. And in the end, she had no idea what was going on. And she got exactly what she wanted.
Nice.
And I got exactly what I wanted.
Very good. Well, see, there you go. Patch matrix. Super cool.
There are many awesome tricks and uses for the patch matrix. In fact, we could do a whole we could probably do a whole tech talk on that one.
We could do a whole tech talk on just the patch matrix and kind of some routing tricks and things like that. We'll make a note of that and we'll come back one of these upcoming weeks and we'll talk about that. But to continue with this, before we get too sidetracked here, I do want to kind of show off a couple of things and give you guys a few examples of how I use this thing. I am a drummer primarily, and my main instrument is drums. And I play in a couple of cover groups and things like that. And very often, and with one group I play with in particular, I mix our rehearsals and sometimes our shows from a TouchMix 16. And I have the desk sitting on a chair next to me behind my drum set. And I'm going to show you sort of a mock-up of my configuration here, because I do a couple of cool tricks with it. I'm going to really quickly use my super high-tech video switching device. 3, 2, 1.
I think he's unplugging it and plugging it back in.
Yep,
Yay,
there we go.
that was awesome.
The cables.
It's like magic.
Okay, so here's my TouchMix 16. I am actually actively using this mixer for my audio for this live stream. So I'm just I mocked up sort of a fake example of our rehearsal, as close as I could get it. So, but what we have, just to lay it out, I'm playing drums. We have 2 guitar players, a bass player, a keyboard player, and a sort of dual lead singers. So we have two lead singers that kind of take turns singing lead versus backup. And then the bass player and guitar player, one of the guitar players, also sing backup. So at any given time, we've got a lead vocalist and 3 backup singers. Okay. So, and this isn't quite like that, but what I'll usually do, if we're just rehearsing, I also play with in-ears. I like to play with in-ears, especially when we're rehearsing in a smaller room. But I'll stick a microphone in my kick drum, and then I'll set up a single overhead over my kit, mostly just for my own reference in my in-ears. So I'll have, you can see that here, I've got my 2 drum channels. I've got a kick and an overhead. And then we have a lead vocal channel. I've only got 2 backing channels dialed into this one. We usually have 3, but that's okay. So I've got a lead vocalist, the 2 backing vocals here, and then I have our keyboardist also running through the mixer into the PA. Now the bass and 2 guitars are just live amped in the room. I'm not providing any reinforcement through the PA for them because they're loud enough. So what I need to do during our rehearsals is I need to kind of more often than not control the mix of the vocals in the room,
right?
And myself to myself, because I do have the ability to kind of push myself in the PA if I want to. I usually don't, but sometimes I do. Because guitar players can get wily. So I'll do a couple of things here to kind of, because this is sort of a lot of channels, and remember, I'm behind a drum set, so I've got drumsticks in my hand at any given time. So I need to kind of simplify this operation a little bit. So the first thing
you're playing with one drumstick, and with the other hand, you've got your hand on the mixer.
That's right.
That is like super ambidextrous of you.
At the same time. Whew. That would be something. No, not quite. So what I will do is first thing I'll do is I'll kind of condense my channel count here as much as possible using some DCAs. So I'll go into my DCAs here. Ooh, here we go. And I'm just gonna, I think I already have these set up, but I'm gonna rearrange them. I'll go in, I'll set one up for myself. I have 2 channels for my drums. So there we go. There's my 2 drum channels. And then I'll put the backing vocals on one. And then I will put the keys. Yeah. Those are linked. I'll put the keys on another. Our keyboardist, again, this example that I'm showing you is slightly shy of a few channels. Our keyboardist plays with 2 keyboards. So he takes up 4 channels on the mixer. So each keyboard is 2 inputs. So I'll group all 4 of his channels in a DCA. I'll put the 3, or this in case 2, backing vocals in a DCA, and then I put my drum mics in a DCA. So I've got 3 faders that I can control those 3 things with. And then I have my lead vocalist mic, okay? So that is 4 things. That is 4 channels, 4 elements that I need to be mixing. And by using the DCAs, I've simplified part of that. Now, what I'll do is I will go into my user buttons. On the TouchMix 16, I have 4 physical user buttons on my mixer, and I will use all 4 of them. I'll assign one of them to the lead vocal channel. So I'll do that now. Input 1, I'm just going to go to select input fader, lead vox, assign.
So that button will bring it right up right away.
So, yeah, anytime I hit this button, now it will select my lead vocal channel. And then all I have to do with it selected is use the physical dial and adjust its setting. Okay. Now I do this with, so I've got my lead vocal on one, I'll have the backing vocals on another, I'll have the keyboardist on another, and then my drum DCA on another. So I have 4 user buttons that can select the 4 components that I need to be adjusting. Now, while we're playing a song, at any point, I can reach over to the mixer, drumstick in hand, press a user button to select the fader or DCA that I need to adjust, and use the tactile encoder wheel to adjust its level quickly and accurately with a drumstick in my hand. I don't even have to interact with the screen or put my stick down at all, and I can get right back into my backbeat, right back in my...
All while playing.
All while playing, without missing a beat.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, that is, those couple of features that I find extremely helpful for my particular use case there.
That is talent, Jason. That's awesome.
Oh, well, I'm not saying that we sound good or anything. I'm just, mixing it is really easy.
Yeah. Yeah, that is cool. I haven't seen that use case yet. So I did have a question.
Yeah.
I saw that I wanted to answer really quick. How do you create from Jake, a click track
I saw that
within
too.
the touch mix and in a DAW and import into a touch mix channel? Now I'm going to tell you how I did this. I actually recorded them all. I do it all in my DAW.
Yep.
And I actually mix it in my DAW and then spit it out as a WAV file, a stereo WAV file. And I import it into my iPad. On my iPad, in the song that I'm doing, I can press play in the song of my music and it'll play the track. So it's at that point, I'm just playing a stereo track.
Yep. So I do it similarly. I've actually done it two different ways. One way is very similar to how you just described, using a DAW. But what I've actually done is I'll create all of my tracks, and then I'll use a software called Ableton, just to set them up. Ableton, if you're unfamiliar, is a sort of like a looping and a triggering software. It's sort of it actually has many use cases. It's a DAW as well, but what I use it for is for kind of live triggering. So I'll have all of my click tracks and all my cues, because I also use those cue tracks. Those are very helpful.
Yeah.
And I get them all set up in there, and I have an actual MIDI control pad that I can hit with my stick, and I can just trigger all of those as our songs kind of progress. And I'm just feeding the output of my laptop, into a stereo input in the mixer, and using it that way. Another thing I have done is same thing. I created all my tracks, in a DAW, and then I actually import them onto a hard drive, and I plug that directly into the mixer, and I enable a couple of playback channels to actually play my cues and my tracks back from a drive on the mixer itself, if I don't have the ability to run them off a laptop.
Does it take a bit of time to switch to the next track?
Yeah, it's not as fast as just live triggering off the laptop. But what I'll do in that scenario is I'll have the recording transport pulled up on my phone that I'm connected wirelessly to the mixer. So from my phone, I can just dial up the next
good idea.
and just be going.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a couple of different ways. Good question there, Jake.
Yeah. So there you see two totally different use cases for running your own sound live.
That is right.
The touch mix is so versatile, Jason. You could make up some awesome workflow for any situation.
You can, yeah. It really is. I mean, like, just the two that we just described are fairly unique and kind of what we're doing, but we figured out a way to make the mixer work for us and provide a simple solution to get us through our gigs and our rehearsals or whatever we're doing. So it's powerful, it's versatile, it slices, it dices.
Yeah, sky's the limit with the touch mix. You learn what it can do, and then you imagine how it can best suit you and your needs. Yeah.
So hopefully what we've done here, aside from just talk about ourselves for 30 minutes, is give you guys some insight on how these different tools can be used, and give you guys a little bit of fuel so that you can kind of get thinking about how you might be able to utilize it for however you need it to operate, and whatever your performances are like.
Exactly. Well, that was cool, Jason. I liked watching your setup too. That was awesome. Before we go, I wanted to let you know about a couple of helpful Facebook groups that we have. We have our QSC Touch Mix group. If you own a touch mix or are interested in owning a touch mix, or even if you don't own a touch mix but find yourself mixing on one, this is an excellent, informative group about everything touch mix. And the other Facebook group we have is hosted by QSC and myself. It's called Church Sound Training. And this group was actually created for church sound people and their volunteers. But the audio concepts that are taught here are universal and applicable across the board.
Absolutely.
Because, adding to your audio knowledge and understanding helps you to operate your touch mix and all other audio equipment with better skill and precision. Yeah.
On that note, I'm going to just drop a little seed here. We are in the kind of the finishing stages of a very ambitious new training course that will kind of be geared towards the House of Worship volunteer. That hopefully will be very, very helpful and informative. We hope to launch
Yes.
that very soon. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
I'm too.
I mean, if you've ever been in church and the pastor or ministry leader gets up and says, "Who wants to volunteer for sound?" And then the volunteer gets up there and brings up the fader and everything feeds back, then this is the course for you. This is going to give you a fighting chance and give you knowledge and skill to be able to navigate.
That's right.
Navigate basic sound.
Don't worry.
Make it sound good.
We got your back.
Yeah. Very cool. Well,
all right.
Thank you so much for watching.
Yes. Thank you, everyone out there in internet land. We hope to see you again next week. We'll have another fun and exciting topic for you. And don't forget to check out those Facebook groups. And if there are any topics or things that you would like us to discuss or talk about or show and explain a little bit more, don't hesitate to comment, message, email us. So we're we're happy to provide whatever information you guys are looking for.
Yep. Have an awesome rest of your day.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.